K-Pop Demon Hunters was almost a completely different movie. 7 years before K-Pop Demon Hunters was officially released, director Maggie Kang pitched the idea of K-Pop Demon Hunters to a producer friend over brunch, where they discussed the idea of the movie being about K-pop idols who were secretly demon hunters. The producer friend loved their idea so much that the next week after the initial pitch, he got a deal ready for Sony Pictures Animation where she could take her ideas to the next level. At first, K-Pop Demon Hunters was intended to be a low-budget and a much more violent movie. It would have featured a main character who was described by Maggie Kang as a messy individual. This protagonist was also envisioned as the failure of her family, and the story would have been a gritty tale about her developing self-worth and struggling to make her family proud. However, about 8 months into development, everything changed. Christine Belson, serving as the president of Sony Pictures Animation, said to the crew that this movie would be bigger than what was originally thought of, which stemmed from her support of Maggie Kang's vision and the potential she saw in the project. This statement drove the complete transformation of the film. It was no longer a niche, low-budget movie focused on a single character's family struggles. Instead, the studio saw the potential for a large-scale international hit. The concept shifted dramatically to a large-scale film intended for a broad global audience, intended to appeal across all demographics with a tone that was now more action comedy musical than violent drama. This meant the story had to change from one person's internal struggle to an ensemble dynamic. It was at this time the focus shifted entirely to the K-pop group dynamic and the pressures of idol life. Soon after this pivot, Appelhans joined production, becoming co-director. Shortly after, early drafts of the script were being written. These drafts and early ideas included Kima as the main villain, but before settling on the name Kima, the character was initially named Duo Keishini, and instead of being a flaming mouth, he was originally designed to have a body inspired by traditional Korean mask. Initially, Maggie Kang envisioned Kima as a wannabe K-pop idol with a more flamboyant and comedic personality. JY Park was even considered an inspiration, and he was originally planned to voice the character. However, once the film became a larger-scale action fantasy, the team ultimately decided they wanted to go with a more traditional-like villain who would be more sinister and charismatic. And because of the shift in tone, the plan to cast JY Park was scrapped, and the production decided instead to choose Lee Byung-hun to voice Kima, giving the character the powerful and serious presence that a more traditional villain required.
A demon boy band?
Maggie Kang's original concept for Rumi was actually a character created by her partner for a different project 9 years before K-Pop Demon Hunters came out. This initial version of Rumi was designed as a skateboarder with purple hair. Maggie Kang plucked the character out for her own project and redesigned her as a K-pop idol, which Maggie Kang liked so much she later named her own daughter after the character, who, fun fact, voices young Rumi in the film.
Meets the light. Celine, do hunters kill all demons?
In developing the history of the Demon Hunters, Maggie Kang specifically referenced the shaman women from Korean culture, who historically sing and dance to protect their village and their communities, which helped provide a foundation for the concept of using music as a protective force against demons. Mira and Zoe almost looked entirely different from what we see in the K-Pop Demon Hunters movie. Zoe was originally supposed to have a teal-colored mohawk, but was later changed to the braided buns we see in the film. Mira's design was also drastically changed a number of times, with one version of her having her hair down with bangs, and in another version of her design, her hair was red and much shorter. During production, Rumi's overall design with her having her distinct purple hair was settled on well before Mira's and Zoe's. So instead of the team focusing on her appearance, they were more focused on her character, making her both glamorous and realistic. Maggie Kang specifically wanted to avoid the stereotype of female superheroes that are just super beautiful, cool, and extremely tough. Instead, she aimed for girls who wore pajama pants, burped, and were silly and fun. She wanted to break the fear in filmmaking of making female characters look ugly or silly, so she opted to create more authentic, relatable, and humanized female heroes. The reason behind this creative choice was that Maggie Kang hoped girls would learn there is strength in being a silly girl and beauty in our imperfections.
We see countless of superhero films coming out every year, and we have seen a lot of female superheroes, but I felt like there was still a space where we could feature women who are a bit more real and relatable and not afraid to look silly. I've worked on a lot of films where, you know, female characters are not really the silliest ones. There's like a fear to make them look ugly. And I really wanted to break all that and go for the silly faces, make the girls chug down food and really just push those expressions so that they kind of look ugly.
The creative team also went through multiple designs to pick the perfect weapon to suit Mira, Zoe, and Rumi. Mira was originally supposed to use a Mudang fan as her weapon to defeat the demons, but this concept was changed to her using a staff-like weapon, which varied from Mudang staffs, the Waldo, a spear, and eventually getting to the Gokdo, which is the weapon we see her using in the film. Zoe's weapon shifted between different versions of Mudang knives, PM Chang, and chain knives, before finally settling on a Shin Kao. Rumi would have styled an executioner sword similar to the sword we see her use at the end of the movie. Arden Cho, who voices Rumi, originally auditioned for the role of Celine, but after hearing her audition, Maggie King encouraged her to try out for the role of Rumi. So Arden Cho went back for a callback and read for Rumi, which led to her getting the lead role. EJ, who was the singing voice of Rumi, was originally not supposed to be Rumi's singing voice. She initially signed on to the project to work as a songwriter. She co-wrote and recorded most of the demos from the film's songs, including the early version of the smash hit Golden. But Maggie King and the team decided EJ would be perfect for the role because her voice provided the power, heartbreak, and grit needed for the character's emotional journey. Director Maggie King noted that EJ brought so much soul to the music, and Chris Appelhans stated that EJ was a North Star for us throughout the process, and she was the first person cast for the project. EJ also felt a deep connection to the character's struggles, relating to Rumi's perfectionism and her drive to chase her dream while hiding her flaws, which is a major reason for her effective portrayal. Speaking of music, while the film is packed with amazing songs, there were a handful of compelling tracks that didn't make the final cut. Kaleidoscope was an earlier iteration of the song What It Sounds Like. It focused on the idea of taking all the pieces of yourself and making it beautiful. But the creators felt this version of the song didn't ring true because the narrative was wrapped up too neatly. The final version, What It Sounds Like, retained lyrics about broken pieces and finding yourself within those broken pieces, aligning better with Rumi's journey of accepting her half-demon identity and battling her inner demons. EJ mentioned before that a strong ballad sort of song that was very personal to Rumi and about her breaking down was ultimately cut from the movie. It was described as dark but still powerful and something EJ loved to sing. This type of song would have provided a moment of deep emotional vulnerability for Rumi, likely exploring her shame and self-hatred about her demon heritage. Gear Up, alongside an alternate Golden music video, was also cut from the movie. The alternate Golden music video was intended to show the past lives of the Thnx members, like Zoe facing cultural harassment and Mira living in a conservative family, which would have deepened their backstories and highlighted the societal issues they overcome. Not only were songs that would have given us more insight about the characters deleted, but there were planned and alternative scenes that would have made the movie entirely different from what arrived. There was an alternate ending that hinted at the survival or spiritual return of Jinwoo after his heroic sacrifice. In one concept, Jinwoo would vanish but leave his heart or a similar symbolic object with Rumi, making his sacrifice more dramatic and sentimental. But the filmmakers chose the tragic sacrifice to emphasize the themes of redemption and growth, allowing the focus to remain on Rumi's arc and self-acceptance. A kiss scene between Rumi and Jinwoo was also deleted from the final cut. Maggie King explained that the decision to cut the scene was deliberate, stating the decision boiled down to the fact that showing less is sometimes more, and that including the romantic moment might have overshadowed the film's central themes of self-acceptance and emotional resilience. In short, the scene was cut to amplify the film's emotional depth and ensure the focus remained on the characters' individual journeys and the main plot, rather than resolving the romantic subplot too early. During the final showdown with the Saja Boys, an earlier version of the scene included Romance and Baby with more screen time, and provided a clearer on-screen fate for them as they are not explicitly killed in the final cut, unlike the other Saja Boys. But this sequence was shortened during editing to keep the climax focused on the main villain Kima and to maintain the movie's pacing. An emotional deleted scene would have shown the Thnx members officially adopting Jinwoo's demon pets, the blue tiger Derpy and the bird Susie, which happened after the final battle. This scene was intended to symbolize Mira and Zoe fully embracing Rumi's demon side, as she previously had to hide the pets out of shame and fear of her friend's rejection. Although the pets are seen with the group at the end of the movie, the official adoption scene was cut. It would have been nice to see these scenes and hear the deleted songs, but it's okay, the movie turned out perfect. Maggie King created the movie she always wished she could have seen as a young Korean fan, making it a powerful love letter to K-pop and her Korean roots. Maggie King fought to keep the raw, messy truth in her heroes, insisting that Rumi, Mira, and Zoe be flawed, relatable girls who were allowed to be silly and imperfect. In the end, all those changes, the deleted songs, the scrap scenes, the lighter tone served to amplify Maggie's ultimate message, embracing your whole self, flaws and all. K-Pop Demon Hunters ultimately became an epic tale of friendship, self-acceptance, and the powerful global connection of music. It's a testament to the idea that sometimes the biggest pivot leads to the biggest hit. But what do you think? Did you find this video interesting? Did you learn anything new about how K-Pop Demon Hunters came about? If you did, consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing if you haven't already. And with all that being said, I hope to see you next time.